Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a late 2019 video talking about my favorite releases of the decade, right? So here we're coming to the end of the decade, right? 2010 to 2019, going into 2020. A lot of great releases happened over the last 10 years. Quite a lot. I sat there pondering. I've had a lot of people asking over the last month or two, it's like, Pete, are you going to do a best of the decade video? And I originally wasn't intending on it, but then I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, it is an end of a decade, right? Probably should. And then I thought about it some more, and I'm like, Christ, I think I listened to and reviewed like well over 1,000 releases over the last, well over, probably like 1,500, 2,000 releases over the last 10 years. I'm thinking, Jesus, how do I whittle it down to like a number that I can be happy with and live with, right? So I basically whittled it down to 30. And actually, as of about 10 minutes ago, I had 31. And I'm like, yeah, 31 doesn't really, I can't just leave it at that. And I pulled Whitesnake's Forevermore out of my list, even though I love it. But I just looked over the rest of this list and I'm thinking, well, you know what? The other 30 that are on here probably deserve to be on this list. Not that Whitesnake's doesn't, but for me it's going to sit just outside it. I love it, but it's not going to be part of this list. So, and this is in no order. I'm not doing like my number 30 through my number 1, which was my favorite. I just couldn't even bear to do that. So here is a list of my 30 favorite albums of the last decade, okay, in no particular order at all. But these are, for me, the cream of the crop. And again, you know, this list could probably change at any point in time, but I kind of went through all of my top picks from the previous years in the decade, and these are the ones that I think, for me anyway, really kind of stood head and shoulders above a lot of the others, right? So let's get it started here. All right, top 30 albums, 2010 to 2019. How about Symphony X-Iconoclast from 2011? You know, Symphony X had actually a couple really, really good albums released in this decade. And, God, you know, Iconoclast for me just stood out a little bit more. Just a band from, you know, progressive metal band from New Jersey. It just keeps getting better and better. I remember the first time I ever listened to them back in the late 90s. I was like, holy cow. But, man, it's just amazing to see where they've come, how far they've come, and just what a classy, powerful, progressive metal band they have just turned out to be, with great vocals, great songwriting, catchy hooks, blazing guitar work, cool keyboards, thunderous rhythms, epic length tracks. For me, Iconoclast just kind of does everything that they do best all in one nice little package there. So that's on this list. How about the UK's Haken, right? The Mountain from 2013. Again, another band that released a couple really good ones this decade, but I always seem to come back, you know, when I think about Haken, who, by the way, if you haven't listened to Haken, a tremendous prog band, kind of more on the metal side, heavy rock, but prog band, true and true, a lot of great hooks and just killer instrumental passages and arrangements. I think I always go back to The Mountain because I think for me that was the one album from them that really made me stand up and take notice. Okay, they had some good ones before that, but The Mountain, I think, was their greatest achievement up to that point. And they've had some stellar albums since then, but I think The Mountain might be my favorite out of all of them. Got to have Dream Theater on this list. And, you know, they've been kind of, I shouldn't say hit or miss. I mean, The Astonishing was a big miss in my opinion. But, you know, all of the albums they've done with Mike Mangini on drums, this is post Mike Portnoy, I've really enjoyed quite a bit, but I don't think I've enjoyed any of them as much as I have their latest. And I think this is my only pick from 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Distance Over Time. Fantastic album. Fantastic album. Actually, no, it's not my only pick from 2019 because it's not my only pick. I got another one. But anyways, yeah, I think Distance Over Time for me just gets back to what Dream Theater does best. You know, the heavy songs, very proggy songs, intricate arrangements, great vocal harmonies and hooks. It's just for me, it's my favorite album of them easily in the last 5, 6, 7 albums. Okay. Let's go back to 2011. How about the sophomore release from Black Country Communion, Black Country Communion 2? I like all of Black Country Communion's albums. There's just something about Glenn Hughes and Joe Bonamassa and Derek Sherinian and Jason Bonham coming together. Man, they capture the spirit of what was so great about heavy rock and blues rock in the 70s. And Glenn Hughes just still sounds so fucking fantastic. And I love Bonamassa's guitar playing. And I really love kind of Glenn's thick bass saddle up next to Jason Bonham's drumming, and I've always been a fan of Derek Sherinian's keyboards. He's a little more understated in Black Country Communion, sticking to mostly, like Hammond organ, little bits of synths and some electric piano, kind of keeping it a little more basic, but it's just something about those guys, and I really think that their second album is their strongest album out of the four, but I love all four of them. But yeah, I think Black Country Communion 2, that's on this list. No doubt. All right, let's go. How about my next two Norwegian prog bands? All right, both of these bands also had some really notable releases in the decade, but I think that these two, for me, just are favorites of mine. How about Wobbler? From Silence to Somewhere from 2017. Man, what a great album that is. If you love classic Scandinavian prog from the 70s, you absolutely have to listen to Wobbler. And again, you could pick any of their albums, but I think From Silence to Somewhere, for me, is just their greatest achievement. Just every possible vintage sounding keyboard you can imagine, Mellotrons and Hammonds and Moogs and, electric piano and all sorts of stuff. Rickenbacker bass, Taurus bass pedals, great electric and acoustic guitar, wonderful vocals, just fantastic band, a fantastic album. Also from the same country, how about Magic Pie? Again, Magic Pie, prog, as well as little bits of Hammond organ-driven hard rock, a la Deep Purple or Uriah Heep. Great vocals, great harmonies, ripping guitar work. Okay, epic arrangements. King for a Day, their album from 2015. Probably my favorite out of the bunch of albums they did in this decade. Again, one of those bands that God in a perfect world should be huge. They're just so amazing. All right, so I just mentioned these guys a couple seconds ago. How about Uriah Heep, Living the Dream? It's just amazing to me how Uriah Heep, this late in the game, has been putting out some of the best albums of their career. I mean, the current lineup is so good, so tight. They're just a great bunch of guys. I've met them all. And their last 4 or 5 studio releases have just been amazing. They started off their career in the 70s with some amazing albums. And here we are in the latter part of their career. Some amazing albums. They're a little bit different, but still the Heep sound. Living the Dream is their most recent. I love it. And, again, I could have picked any of their kind of last 5 studio albums because I love them all. But there's something about Living the Dream. It rocks hard, it's progressive, and all the tunes are instantly memorable. It was one of my favorites of 2018, and for a reason, and got to make this top 30 list of the decade. All right, we're going to go to 2016 here. Got to have some Opeth on this list. Again, they've had some really killer albums over the last 10 years. But I think my favorite of this new kind of more progressive and hard rock and psychedelic version of Opeth, moving away from the death metal. They moved away from death metal this decade. I think Sorceress from 2016 is probably my favorite of the bunch. I really like Sorceress a lot. I know there's some people who are maybe half and half on that album. I really dig it because I think it's got the heavy, it's got the proggy, it's got the folky, it's got the psych, it's got a little bit of everything. And on the same token, their latest also too. If I had more time with it, might have made this list, but it's so their new one is just so new to me. It's I'm still digging it, still loving it, but hasn't unseated Sorceress yet for me. So Sorceress from Opeth on this list. All right, from 2015, I had to throw Spock's Beard album on this list because they have just been killing it over the last 10 years with a handful of really, really great releases. And I'm going to go with the Oblivion Particle as my choice. Just, bombastic, melodic, virtuoso progressive rock as only Spock's beer can do. Current lineup for me is really clicking. Really digging it. Ted Leonard on vocals from Enchant. And I really like that album a lot. It was immediate. It's like one of those albums that the first time I listened to, I was like, this is great. And it's continued to be great all these years. Okay. Where were we? All right, we're going to stay on 2015. 2015 was a good year. I got a couple of them here. From Norway, Enslaved. And I'm going to go with In Times. Enslaved are a long-time Norwegian black metal band who over the years, over the last 15 or so years, has really kind of developed a very progressive style. So they're still playing black metal, but they're taking elements of Pink Floyd and a lot of the prog bands to give us this real symphonic, folky, progressive black metal sound. Okay, with the back and forth, clean and growling vocals, lots of keyboards, lots of psychedelic guitar work. All right, just a fantastic band who has, in my opinion, really pushed the boundaries of what black metal is all about in a really, really great way. So, again, I could have picked any number of Enslaved's albums from the last decade. They've got a bunch of really good ones, but I don't know, In Times, I think, for me, is probably my favorite of all of them. All right, sticking on that same year. How about my favorite U.S. technical death metal band, Nile? What Should Not Be Unearthed from 2015. Brutal, technical, progressive. I love Nile. Nile has been my favorite death metal band for a long time now, and it's just something about the music they do. I dig technical music, and their music is just so heavy and so brutal, yet so technical, and the lyrics are amazing, and I love their style of death metal growls. The double guitar attack, the bludgeoning riffs, the amazing George Callias on drums. Just a perfect band, a perfect album. All right, let's go to 2018, all right? Again, another band that had a lot of really good releases in the decade, and I was like, geez, which one do I pick? Gotta have one of them. Kamelot. Gonna go with The Shadow Theory. Again, you could go with any of their albums from this decade, but I just really, really dug that album a lot. It's melodic, it's epic sounding, it's symphonic. Again, a band that it's kind of hard to really pigeonhole them because, they're kind of progressive metal, but they're kind of power metal. They're kind of symphonic metal, right? Hard rock, they kind of do it all. Just a really, really classy band that, in my opinion, has never released a bad album. Great vocals, tons of keyboards, great guitar work, just potent rhythms, memorable tunes. Love it. Let's see. Going back to 2012. And again, I'm sounding like a broken record, but another band that had a lot of really good releases this decade. But we're going back to Norway. Borknagar, another symphonic black metal band. I'm going to go with their 2012 album Urd, or U-R-D. Borknagar, again, another kind of groundbreaking black metal band that mixes folk and symphonic prog, soaring melodic vocals, harsh black metal growls, okay, into this kind of just really amazing sound that just kind of covers so many different genres and just so pleasing to the ear. It's like if you like progressive music and you've been a little afraid of kind of venturing into black metal, I highly recommend Enslaved and Borknagar. All right, just two really, really great bands that are totally pushing the boundaries of black metal. All right, so let's go back to 2018. Judas Priest-Firepower. Again, for me, Priest released two killer albums in the decade that shows that they're back 100%. I weighed both of them together, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to give the edge to Firepower. It's just a classic-sounding Judas Priest album. And again, another example of a veteran, legendary band who, you just can't write them off. They're releasing killer material this late in the game. And again, I know it's with a kind of a revamped lineup, but it's still fantastic. It's classic sounding Judas Priest. All right, on that same token, right, another legendary legacy band, Iron Maiden, The Book of Souls from 2015. Takes a lot of balls to release a double album this stage of the game, right? But it totally worked. Classic sounding Maiden. All right, I personally have loved all the Maiden stuff that they've released since Bruce rejoined the band for Brave New World. I like it all. It's more progressive. It's more epic sounding. This album is no exception. Memorable songs, lengthy tunes, lot of really great instrumentation and, guitar passages and just great stuff. Really, really dig it a lot. All right, here we have another 2019 one. Man, I don't know what more to say about this band other than I'm just continually stupefied that they're not like one of the biggest rock bands on the planet. Rival Sons, Feral Roots. God, what a great album. Again, if you love vintage sounding 70s bluesy hard rock, it doesn't get much better than Rival Sons. Such a great album. The songs are hauntingly unforgettable. All right, it's just that album came out, and for the first time I played it, I was like, holy cow, this is like their greatest achievement without a doubt, and one of the best of the year. Let's go back to 2012. It took me a while to get into this band. All right, I had a lot of people, especially I had a bunch of SOT writers who were huge fans of this band, and at first I kind of would listen to some of their music, and I'm like, I don't really get it. I don't get what everybody's like gushing over with these guys. But it took me a while. Finally, one day I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to pick up those couple of albums that came out, in recent years at the time, and started listening to them. And I was like, yeah, you know what, this is pretty damn good. I'm talking about Anathema. I'm going to go with Weather Systems. That's just, some of the like melodies are just like, you listen to it and you're like, man, how good is that? And, the male and the female vocals, it just works so fucking perfectly. And it's just like, man, now I get it. Because, I was listening to Anathema when they first came out. And they were more like kind of like a doomy band, kind of bleak sounding and whatnot. And then all of a sudden they've turned into this like kind of like real melodic, uplifting, kind of atmospheric rock and prog and just, gorgeous, gorgeous vocal harmonies. Amazing. So, yeah, I finally jumped on the bandwagon. What can I tell you? All right, from 2012, that same year, one of the best kind of feel-good return for any band in recent memory that, lost parted ways with their iconic singer, got a new one, and man, just continued to kick ass, Accept-Stalingrad. Man, I tell you, Accept has just been killing it. Udo left to go do his own thing, and Accept were like, you know what, we're finding another singer, and we're just going to prove to everybody that we're still just as viable a metal band as ever. And man, they have been doing so. Okay, just great album. Classic metal, power metal, whatever you want to call it. Just a great album. From 2014, let's go to Ireland. A band that also kind of defies description a little bit. I guess you can kind of call them a black metal band, but they're just so much more, way much more. And I think they also add elements of doom and just a really good kind of melodic extreme metal band. I'm talking about Primordial, all right, where greater men have fallen. Just memorable tunes, epic arrangements. It's heavy, but it's textured and melodic, and the vocals are like unlike anything you've ever heard before. Just some irresistible, unforgettable music. Primordial, where greater men have fallen, from 2014. All right, back in 2012. A great goodbye for this band, I thought. Very, very memorable album, and I think one of their strongest albums since like probably the start of the 90s. And we miss them. Everybody misses them. And I think that, when we look back in history 10, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, we're going to look at Clockwork Angels by Rush as a really, really strong goodbye album for a great band. I dig Clockwork Angels a lot. I think it tries very hard and succeeds at capturing some of the magic of all the different eras of Rush leading up to that moment. And I dig it a lot. It had to be on this list. One of the first albums when I was putting this list together that I knew had to be on this list. From 2015, another band who parted ways with their iconic singer, got a new one, and have not lost a beat at all. Okay, we're talking about Queensryche-Condition Human. A great album. One of my favorite albums of 2015. I like their new one as well. I was sitting there juggling the both of them. Like, yeah, you know what? But again, the new one, I just don't quite have enough time with yet. I know it's been out for all of this year, but I think that Condition Human, I've been listening to nonstop for 4 years now. And it's top to bottom. It's just great. It captures everything that is so amazing about classic Queensryche. Okay, you know, you can cry all you want about how Jeff Tate's not in the band anymore, but man, you got to listen to these last couple albums they've done with their current singer. All right, with Todd. I mean, they're just great. They sound like vintage Queensryche. Okay, everything about it is just amazing. So got to have that on there. From 2018, another band that for me released a very strong catalog of material in the 2010s, whatever we want to call it. Had a hard time choosing which one, but I think I actually probably like this one from 2018 the best. Amorphis-Queen of Time, a great band from Finland, and you know, again, defies description. You know, at their core, when they first came out, they were basically a death metal band, but they've become so much more over the years. Elements of prog and folk and just good melodic hard rock. All right, they do, you know, they mix it up between the death metal growls and the clean vocals. Their songs are epic and symphonic and heavy and proggy. Just a fantastic band. Queen of Time, kind of hard to beat, man. It's just so really, really good. All right, from 2016. I love this album a lot when it first came out, and I think for me it's one of the best return to forms for any like vintage, legendary legacy prog band. How about Kansas, the Prelude, Implicit? All right, their debut release, studio release with Mr. Ronnie Platt on lead vocals. The new lineup is just killer. I really dig this album a lot. It's got a really good kind of classic, a lot of really great classic Kansas sounds. All right, it's melodic, it's memorable. All right, got a little bit of pop, a lot of prog, some hard rock. It's just very classy. And they got a new one in the works for 2020, which I can't wait to hear. Now that they've had some time to gel together, man, I shudder to think how great that's going to be. All right, from 2016, as we wind down this list, a killer band. And again, they kind of straddle the line between doom and stoner and classic 70s style blues rock. I'm talking about Witchcraft and Nucleus. An incredible album. The riffs are just amazing, near legendary. The vocals are kick-ass. The tone of the album is kind of like dark and spooky, but it's just, you know, like I said, the core of it is just this great, like 70s style blues rock band with hints of psychedelia and prog and doom. Wonderful, wonderful album. God, they're due. Where the hell they've been hiding? From 2016, that same year, how about Resonate from Glenn Hughes? My God, what a great album that is. You know, Glenn has been very quietly releasing a slew of very strong solo albums in and around his time in Black Country Communion and all the various other projects he's doing. But I tell you, Resonate rocks hard. Okay, it's got that vintage, like 70s heavy rock sound to it. Just chunky, crunchy guitars and amazing vocals. God, this guy can still sing like with the best of them. Great bass and rhythms and drums and keyboards. It's just a really, really just classic sounding hard rock album that I still listen to this day. Kind of along those same lines, all right? My favorite band of all time, Deep Purple, Now-What from 2014. Okay, I had two great albums to choose from for Purple. I love them both almost equally. Okay, it was either Now-What or Infinite, and I was like, geez, which one do I pick? Which one do I like the most? And I'm like, you know, the more I thought about it, because one of them had to be on this list, I purposely did not want to put two releases from the same band on this list. I wanted to be fair to everybody. And I said, you know what? I think I like Now-What just a hair better. Just a hair better. Because I think there's a couple tunes on Now-What that I really, really love. Even though, you know, Infinite might be stronger top to bottom. I think there's just, I don't know, it's hard to say. I love them both almost equally. So it's like choosing from your children or choosing your dogs, right? Which one do you like better? So I decided to throw Now-What on this list. So that's what I'm sticking with. Great, great album. These last two Deep Purple albums with Bob Ezrin producing it have just been fantastic. And we got another one coming up next year. Can't wait. On those same lines, another returning band who just knocked it out of the park. How about Styx, The Mission from 2017? Man, that's already been out, 2.5 years, and I still listen to that all the time. And it's like it's compact. It's like 35 minutes long, something like that, 35, 38, and it just flows so nicely. It contains all the classic Styx elements. It's progressive as hell. It's got great hard rock. It's got catchy pop hooks. All right, keyboards and the guitars and the vocals all done perfectly. The songs are so memorable. I'm so happy that they're going to be playing that album in its entirety on this upcoming tour next year. I've got to go. And then, so a full set of that and a full set of all the hits and classics. But for me, The Mission is one of the greatest return to forms from a legacy band in the last bunch of years. Just a great, great album. If you're a Styx fan of old and you basically gave up on trying any of their new music over the last 20 years, you need to go out and check out The Mission. I'm telling you, it goes back. It harkens back to Crystal Ball and Grand Illusion and Pieces of Eight and Equinox and all that great stuff. I'm telling you, it's fantastic. From 2017, that same year, my favorite album of the year, 2017, got to be on this list. Sons of Apollo, Psychotic Symphony, a supergroup to end all supergroups. Ron Bumblefoot Thal, all right, or Bumblefoot. Did I say Bumblefoot? Bumblefoot Thal on guitars. Jess Scott Soto on vocals. Billy Sheehan on bass. Mike Portnoy on drums. Derek Sherinian on keyboards. Doesn't get much better than that. That debut album is fantastic. Top to bottom, some of the best progressive metal I've heard in years. And they got a new one coming out in early 2020 that I cannot wait for. All right, from 2018. It was my favorite album of last year. Has to make this list. Black metal legends Immortal, Northern Chaos Gods. It's just one of my favorite black metal albums that I've heard in years. It's pummeling. And again, no Abath. Abath leaves the band. Demon Oz comes back into the fold on vocals and guitar, and they just kill it. They just kill it. I mean, it's a pummeling album, but so memorable. I mean, God, who would think that black metal could be anthemic and memorable? Listen to that album. I'm telling you. And my last pick for this list, all right, a list that was very hard to put together. And he had to be on here somewhere because, again, this guy has just been involved in so much stuff in the prog genre over the last 20 years, and he's released some great solo albums in recent years. This one, however, is mighty, mighty special. Steven Wilson, The Raven That Refused to Sing, and Other Stories from 2013. Classic sounding prog. For a guy that for years was saying he didn't want any part of the prog genre, man, he's doing a lot to keep prog going in recent years. That's such a great album. It's just kind of like a moody, atmospheric, melodic, vintage sounding album. Just love it, love it, love it. Great. So that's my top 30 of the decade, guys. Again, if you don't hear your favorites, doesn't mean I don't like them. Again, you might have a different list. There's no right or wrong answers here. And again, there's probably some other stuff that could weed its way onto my list if I, agonized over this for months at a time. But I wanted to really kind of, sometimes when you're doing stuff like this, you have to just kind of go with your gut, your initial choice. Usually your initial picks are the best, right? So this is a damn strong list. These are damn strong albums. If you haven't heard any of these, I'm going to actually post these in the description. Okay, so you can go seek them out if you haven't. But again, be interested to see what some of your top albums of the decade are. Again, we all have different opinions and likes and different and dislikes. We all hear things differently. So nobody's lists are right or wrong. Okay, it's just a matter of which albums have meant the most to us over the last decade. So visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube. That's right, all the damn time. So stay tuned, guys. We got tomorrow. Tomorrow is the start of round 6, right? Are we on round 6? Round 6 in Classic Live Album War, the final 4. 2 matchups, all right? And then we will be crowning your favorite live album of all time. I'm hoping on Christmas Day. I'm thinking tomorrow. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that's when it'll be. It'll be Christmas Day. So and I'm really hoping that Mom will come back on the show Christmas Eve. Okay, because she's going to be here. She's going to be here Christmas Day for a little bit too, but I think I'm going to get Mom on the show to do a quick little Christmas show, and I may get her to do the coronation of our live album champion. Okay, that may be a good time to bring her in. Of course, she's not going to know anything about. Well, she might. Hey, you know what? She might know a little bit about a couple of the bands. Sabbath isn't in anymore. Kiss isn't in anymore. But there's a couple of the others she knows. So we'll see what happens. But I talked to Mom last weekend. She kind of giggled when I told her people want her back on the show. So she's like, oh, we'll see. So I'll convince her. It was fun last time. So anyway, guys, take care. SeaOfTranquility.org, www.seaoftranquility.org. And we will see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.